Hey, I'm Brian Van, sportbiketracker.com, and today we're going to break down the Woodcraft Rearset install on our 2018 BMW S1000RR STG project bike. Okay, Woodcraft Rearset kit for the BMW S1000RR. Quick feature and benefit for you. We have adjustable foot pegs, adjustable toe pieces. This kit preserves the functionality of the rear brake return spring. The electronics, the ABS on the bike preserves the rear brake light functionality, right? Internal in the system. There is no switch mounted up here on the rear set bracket. Shifting. The kit is capable of either standard or GP shift, just like the OE lever was, shift lever was. It's important to note too, this bike is equipped with an auto blipper. This is a 2018 model, so it's auto up and auto down. When flipping from standard to GP shift using the Woodcraft kit, there is no recalibration or reprogramming or anything to do because you're making the change at the shifter itself, not up at the shift knuckle. So it's a very straightforward install. Woodcraft does a great job with their instructions. They're supplied with the kit, schematic breakdowns. These are great to save. If for no other reason, if you happen to have a tip over and you need just some bits and pieces, they put the part number of every individual bolt, right? Every individual bracket, and they have all these in stock. If they don't have them in stock, they'll actually open up a kit to pull replacement parts for a customer to help you get your bike back to race-ready condition. Very important note before we dive into the install here is that this kit does require reusing a couple of the OEM pieces. I will point that out through this video. With that said, if you don't have your OEM rear sets on your bike, you may need to source just a couple of the OEM parts that we're going to show you being reused within this video to install this kit. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the removal of the brake side rear set. We're going to start off here with the retaining pin for the rear brake master clevis. You need to release this clip. Hopefully Caleb can get pretty close here. It's a spring clip, okay, that holds the pin in place on the master cylinder push rod. Kind of a different design. This is something I haven't seen previously. Once I get it off, this will help illustrate how it's held on. Essentially that slides through the clevis, through the brake pedal, rotate it forward, and it clips itself to the clevis right there. Okay, this part is going to be reused when we install the rear sets on the bike. Next up, we need to unbolt the master cylinder mounts. They go through the heel guard bolts. We're going to use a T30 and a 10mm wrench for that. There are nuts on the back side here. The master cylinder itself is not threaded. There is a little bit of Loctite on there, so I want you to expect a little bit of resistance. You will reuse the nuts. We will not be reusing the heel guard bolts. On the back side of the master cylinder, there is a bracket that holds the brake pedal return spring too. I'll show you that in a second. That is also going to be reused. When you pull these two bolts out, I want you to expect that bracket to kind of come out too. There it is right there along with the spring. The spring hooks over a pin that's on the back side of the brake pedal. Now we need to get a T45. This will be for the main mounting bolts. The rear set bracket where they mount to the frame. These bolts will be reused. We also need to unbolt the brake pedal from the footrest itself. That's a T40. The reason we need to remove this is we need the bushing that's inside. It's going to be used with our rear set install. The bolt will not be reused. There is a new fastener supplied, but this bushing right here is going to need to be reused. Okay, installing the Woodcraft Rearsets. Very modular design. Even the brake pedal itself is in multiple pieces. So we need to get this prepped and ready to install on the bike. One of the first pieces I'm going to install is going to be the adapter that bolts to the frame of the BMW that will then hold the actual main footrest bracket itself. We reuse the OEM bolts to attach that bracket to the motorcycle. We put just a little bit of medium strength thread locker. There's really no reason outside of crash repair to have to remove these down the road, okay? There's no adjustment here. This is a fixed point. So we'll use a little thread locker here just to make sure they stay tight for Jimmy. Not putting any torque down, just want to run them down so they're flush, both top and bottom, like so. And then I'll go ahead and torque them down. I'm not going to use a torque wrench on the rear sets. If you're not comfortable working without a torque wrench, I would encourage you to look up all the torque specs for these fasteners and then grab your torque wrench. Once I have that bracket installed on the bike, I'm then going to assemble the rear brake pedal. This is multiple pieces, right? We have an eccentric cam here for the toe piece that allows it to move around to any one of these locations, right? So you get some nice finite adjustments without having to do anything here at the master cylinder, which is really nice. Very easy adjustment. What I like to do when I assemble the brake pedal and or the shift pedal with Woodcraft Rearsets is any of the fixed points that don't offer any adjustment, like right here, and the toe piece to the eccentric cam, I like to just use red or heavy strength Loctite to ensure that my fasteners do not come loose. Don't really need a ton. Woodcraft also uses tapered fasteners, so you have a lot of surface area there. You get a lot of mechanical grip from that. So a little extra holding strength never hurt anybody. Like so. On this rear set install, anywhere where there is adjustment, I will not be using thread locker. The reason behind that is you're not going to know if these things are in the right position until Jimmy's had an opportunity to ride the motorcycle, right? No one really does until you get a chance to get out there. And what I don't want to do is have a bunch of thread locker in place. It just makes performing the adjustments at the track that much more difficult. What I like to do is give the rider an opportunity to ride the bike enough to get the positions all dialed in. Once you've landed on the right spot for a particular rider, you can then go back, if you choose to do so, and add thread locker. These I'll put final torque to right now. like so. The toe piece in the eccentric cam. I'm just going to start off with an arbitrary position here, and as I said earlier, because this is a point that offers adjustment, we're not going to put any thread locker here. Please note, this uses the shortest tapered head fastener. The longer ones go in the toe piece and then attach the brake lever to the pivot. These are all 4mm internal hex. Put a little torque to that. And there is our brake pedal, all assembled and ready to go. This then needs to be bolted to our footrest. You're going to reuse that bushing. And then there's another fastener. And this you can use thread locker on for sure. Okay? Right here. But before we do that, I want to put the foot peg on. Because the foot peg itself offers quite a bit of adjustment, and we're not sure where Jimmy's going to need to be, I'm definitely not going to use any thread locker here. They use a large fastener, once again, tapered head, a lot of mechanical grip here, so you really don't have to worry if you've got these torqued down good about these things coming loose. So let's go ahead and find a spot that makes sense. Jimmy's really tall. I think he's like 6'5" or something. So we're not going to utilize that uppermost hole. That's going to really cramp him up quite a bit. So we're going to start in the lowest hole and then give him the opportunity to get out there and ride the bike. What I do want to do is I want to have them kind of further back, right? So kind of open up the cockpit a little bit for him. So the hole that I'm going to choose to go into is going to be, so you want that eccentric. So it's got this as far back as possible. Look at the angle that you've got here. Still want to preserve some height to it, so I think I'm going to go in this hole right here. Once again, this is nothing more than just a starting place. We won't really know until we get it to the track for the first time in the spring. 6mm internal hex. Go ahead and torque that down. Now, we can go ahead and put the brake on. This, for now, I'm going to use just a little bit of the medium strength thread locker. The reason I'm not going to use red back there is if, in fact, we do need to make a foot peg adjustment, we're going to have to pull that pivot off, and I really don't want to have the heavy strength thread locker in there when we have to do that. Just using a Phillips screwdriver, just get a nice film of a general purpose grease in there. Slide the bushing in, like so. We got everything lined up, get that started. I was careful too to make sure we didn't put a bunch of grease in the threads for the rear brake pedal. Go ahead and torque that down. You can see it's starting to come together quite nicely. Okay, next up we need to install the brake pedal stop, right? You can see there's a little cam right here that we're going to install. And then on the back side of it, there's a cap nut that's going to go. This bolt is excessively long. What it allows you to do is use the brake pedal return spring, okay? And then on the other side of this, you'll have that cap nut. That tolerance is really close, okay? You can see it was just close enough. I was able to get that fastener through there. I put just a little dot of medium strength right there. There is some adjustability here. You're able to change the point at which it stops. You can kind of finish that adjustment on the motorcycle. I already have a pretty fair idea of where it needs to be. Snug that up. Now we're ready to fasten this to that bracket there. If we need to make any adjustments, this will need to come off. So we're just going to use just the tiniest little bit of medium strength here. These are 6mm internal hex. Just like we do with the other mounting bolts, just run it down till we've got contact on both, nice and even. Once we've done that, we'll then apply final torque. Like so. This kit comes complete with heel guard. There are 2 new fasteners supplied that we're going to reuse. These are going to fasten the heel guard to the footrest bracket, and the master cylinder to the footrest bracket, and also hold in place the rear brake return spring bracket. Slide that over, clevis over the brake pedal. Go ahead and push these through here. And lined up. Like so. I found it worked best if the spring was installed like so. Get that slid over those fasteners. Really tight here. It's going to be hard for Caleb to get in there and really show you much, but it is pretty darn self-explanatory. Okay, once I've got that in position, these are 4mm internal hex. Put just a dab of thread locker inside the nut itself. You're reusing the OE nuts. These fasteners were supplied by Woodcraft. So I think that's something important to note with this particular rear set kit. You know, there's a handful of the OE parts that you're reusing, right? And you will not be able to complete the install without said parts. Use a wrench there on the backside just to get that last little bit of torque there. Make sure they're nice and even. And now we have our rear brake return spring. Use a spring tool there. A lot of things you could use to get that done. Exhaust spring tool is pretty nice if you happen to have one. Got this little cap head nut. I'm going to put some thread locker on that. Before you tighten that, you want to make sure that you've got that cam in the position you want it in, right? And effectively what you're doing here is you're just changing the point at where the brake begins to engage, okay, where it stops retracting. And now would be a good time to go ahead and get that pin installed through the clevis into the rear brake pedal. Pressure forward, you feel a real positive click and engagement. So all that cam does, it just changes, right, the position of the brake pedal when it's fully retracted. Actually, I'll loosen this up a little bit. And what I want to do is I want to have it as far down as possible, which should be right there. Torque on that. A little bit of torque on that cap head nut. Got the thread locker there to help out too. There is also a cap. If you want to finish off the look of the end of the foot peg, you can simply just drive that right in there. We're going to go ahead and do that. It makes for kind of a nice slider in case you have a tip over. That's optional. You don't have to install it if you don't want to. Like so. And there is your brake side complete. Any adjustments that we need to make, those will be made once the motorcycle's been ridden by Jimmy and he understands, where he really wants the ergonomics of it. This is a 2018 model. This rear set kit also includes a bracket for the exhaust. This is going to be for earlier models where the exhaust is mounted to the rear set itself. We will not be using this part on the 2018 model. Okay, now we're on to the shift side. This is typically a little bit easier than the brake side. We're going to begin by removing the OEM rear sets from our BMW. Once again, I'm using different size Torx. We're going to use a T30 to remove the Heim joint from the OEM shifter. The bike is currently set up for standard shift. You can see from the factory, this will allow you to flip the shifter so you can go from standard street pattern to GP reverse shift by simply relocating that Heim joint, just like that. The Woodcraft kit allows for the same type of adjustment to be made. We're going to use a T45 on the main footrest mounting bolts. These will be reused. We need a T40 back here. It's over here on the other side. Now we're ready to begin installing our new rear set kit. Okay, just like I showed you over on the brake side, the Woodcraft rear sets are a modular design. Everything's in pieces. For example, here is our shift pedal. You've got the knuckle, allows for standard or GP shift, right? And the pedal is in multiple pieces. So if you happen to have a little bit of a tip over, right, you can just replace each individual component instead of needing the entire piece. Pretty intuitive design, I like it quite a bit. First thing we need to do for the install is install the adapter plate that goes to the frame of the motorcycle and allows for installation of the main footrest bracket for the rear set, the Woodcraft rear set kit. We're going to reuse the OE Torx bolts here. There is no adjustment in this particular position. For that reason, we will use a little bit of thread locker on these bolts. I'm just going to use medium strength, that should be plenty. When we assemble the shift pedal, like I did on the brake pedal, we're going to use heavy duty strength because we don't want that to come loose. As previously stated, I will not be using a torque wrench on this project. If you're not comfortable operating that way, I encourage you to grab your torque wrench, look up all the torque specs for each individual bolt. Make sure you run them both down so they're flush before you put any real torque to it. I like to give it a couple of passes to make sure it's nice and even. On the shift side, we can just go ahead now and go ahead and put the foot peg in position, right? We're not going to use any thread locker here. We're going to use the same mounting hole that we had on the other side. I don't like to use, for the first install, thread locker on any of the adjustable positions because we don't yet understand where the rider is going to want the foot pegs, the toe pieces, until they've had the opportunity to really ride the bike. So we get to that spot, no thread locker necessary. You still want to make sure you've got good torque so it doesn't come loose when they're on the bike. That's ready to install. Use a little bit of thread locker here. This kit allows for standard or GP shift, just like the OE shifter did. Jimmy's preference is GP. So that's how we're going to set it up. The way Woodcraft designed the kit, there is no adjustment necessary when going from standard to GP shift because you're not changing the position of the shift knuckle up here at the selector shaft. So, end of the day, the motorcycle really has no idea which direction you're pushing it in. It makes no difference as long as you're making the change down here. Same as with the other bolts, make sure you've got them both flush before you apply any real torque. Couple of passes. Go ahead and install this plug right now. Now we're ready to build our shifter. Like I said, any of the spots is no adjustment. I'm going to use heavy duty thread locker because there's no reason for these to come back apart unless you've had a tip over. Get both of these started. I got to grab my T-handles here from the other side. 4mm internal hex. Couple of passes here, make sure we've got this good. Same cam that we showed you on the other side is available over here, so you have all this adjustment built in without changing the position of the actual shift rods themselves, which is pretty darn nice. Make sure to use the longer of the two fasteners to hold the toe peg to the eccentric cam. This is a non-adjustable piece, so we're going to go ahead and go with the heavy stuff here. Make sure you got that torque good. Okay, now, here is the new bushing. Okay, that bolts up like that there. This slides over, like so. Nice tight fit. We have a washer, and then we have the clip. Before we do all that, we want to make sure we've got some lubrication in there, just like we showed you on the brake side. Nice reasonable fill. I like a little bit here on the outside too, because there's some contact there. A little bit here where the washer's going to touch it. On your washer. Snap ring pliers. Very important that you make sure you've got that in that groove, fully seated. One way to make sure is, you see how I'm able to spin that? When it's in the groove itself, it's fully compressed, you'll be able to spin that around. If you can't spin it around, that means that you don't have it fully seated in the groove. This is a fixed point, and this is something else you definitely don't want to come loose. So we're going to put a little bit of thread locker there. For our toe piece, kind of get an idea where I was on the other side. Start in a similar spot. No thread locker here. Slide that through. That is a 6mm internal hex. Final torque there. Now we have the mounting bolt for our hind joint. Just a little bit of medium strength there. Since we have multiple holes to choose from, I'm going to start with the one that is furthest away from the center. It's going to give us the strongest mechanical advantage. This is a T30. It's a little different working on this German bike. You know, all the torque's fasteners. You can see instinctively I was going right for my 4mm T-handle, and you know, that's not the tool I needed in this case. Kind of hold that up as I torque this down. With any shifter installs, you want to really pay attention to the angle between the shift rod, the shift knuckle, and the shift pedal itself. You want to try and get it as close to 90 degrees as humanly possible, because that gives you the greatest mechanical advantage, right? And that is a recipe for smooth shifting, right? You have bad angles where you kind of tank your mechanical advantage. I'm just trying to get that boot slit over here. That can result in missed shifts, false neutrals, all those things that every rider absolutely despises. Boot's a little, tolerance here is a little tight. Take your time to get that slid over into position. Okay, there we go. So if you look here, that's the angle I'm talking about, and that is really close to 90. It does look like we're probably going to need to shorten this up a little bit, kind of bring this up, and that will actually get the angle a little closer to where I want it. I'm not going to make any adjustments to the shifter until we have Jimmy in his riding boots on the bike to understand the best possible spot for him. Okay, rear set kit is all installed. This was a booby trap free installation, which I always appreciate, right? And I think our customers are going to feel the same way. Just to recap, on the brake side, the adjustability that we have with this kit built in, we have two different bolt holes here to choose for the foot peg. Eccentric cams allow you to move it around basically 360 degrees, and it's an eccentric cam, so all the while you're going up or forward or down. Okay, so plenty of adjustment here. And it's also important to note that when Eric Wood designs these, even the lower hole is putting you in a much more ergonomic position than your OEM rear sets. Adjustability for the brake lever and or the shifter is found here. The toe piece, there's an eccentric cam there too that allows you to move around 360 degrees. You can raise it up, you can move it forward, you can lower it down, you can move it back. You still have more adjustment on the brake master cylinder push rod. This particular kit retains the OEM rear brake return spring functionality. The brake light itself is turned on through the hydraulic system, the ABS system of the bike, so that functionality is of course retained. Over on the shift side, we have this identical adjustability here at the foot peg and the toe piece. This kit allows for standard shift, which would be here in the forwardmost hole, or reverse GP shift, which would be here in the rearwardmost. Very easy install. Shift side is always easier than brake side. It's just far less complicated because you're not dealing with the master cylinder. On the footrest, I like the way all the angles came together with the shifter. Eric did a good job on this. This is a good clean kit. It's going to be a great option, obviously, for track riders, but because it preserves the rear brake return spring and the rear brake light functionality, you could use these on the street if you're looking to upgrade your footrest a bit. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments section of this video. I answer all those myself, and hopefully you guys see we're trying to help you get the same end result from your project we do from ours.